Welcome to the HabitStack podcast, where we talk to fellow founders who are in the thick of things as they execute their plans to grow their business. Because stories about past successes are interesting, but hearing from people who are in the middle of the battle right now, that's invaluable. I'm Scott Ward, founder of HabitStack. I'm here today with Bill Stathopoulos, author of Cold Email Secrets and the CEO of Sales Captain, salescaptain.io, if you ever want to check it out. Bill, it's good to be here with you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for the invite. It's good to be here.
We'll spend some time getting to know each other on this call, and maybe a good way to start is to hear what you're reading, listening to, researching. What's in the area of education, self-education and learning? What's going on for you?
Yeah, I actually listen to my books. So I'm listening and reading at the same time. Yeah, two different reads and different kind of purposes. The first one is Measure What Matters, from the authors and coaches at Google, if I'm not mistaken. And the other one is The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Who wrote The Greatest Salesman in the World?
That's a good question. I don't remember.
I've heard of it. Is it old book, new book? I can't remember.
It's an old book. There's like a second version of that, like a continuation, but the one I'm reading is quite old, I think.
Yeah. So Measure What Matters is about OKRs, etc.
Yeah.
And so
Right.
what's been something that's kind of jumped out at you about that? What's one takeaway that you're going to apply?
Applying OKRs. I'd say it's like quite basic because we're at the stage.
Right.
Yeah, we have goals, but they're not structured maybe in a way that's like similar for everyone across the business, across departments. So because we're at the stage where Sales Captain is growing and there's like a layer of management, there's different teams, which didn't exist 6 months ago. I wanted to have proper foundations built into the business as we're entering this kind of next stage. So that's why it was a recommendation from Theo, who heads our marketing. He was like, I sent a different book recommendation his way. And he said, if I'm going to read this, you're going to read Measure What Matters. And I was like, okay.
Interesting. So it wasn't kind of like a felt need that you had. It wasn't like, we got to do something here. It was something that came from your team, actually.
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. I did have the need for it. I just didn't prioritize that at that specific stage. But like Theo brought it up and I was like, yeah, I mean, sure. It makes sense.
Fair is
I'll
fair.
go for it.
No, fair is fair.
Yeah.
So I'm going to ask him to read something. Yeah. So what was the symptom that you thought, that you had in your mind that you thought maybe, or you're hoping that OKRs address this? What's happening?
Yeah, it's more of a symptom. It's less of a symptom and more of a kind of direction that I want us to be at, or kind of like a higher level goal, which is alignment of the team.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, you have your goals as a business, you know where you want to be, but how do you align everyone so you don't have to micromanage them, but they still understand and have proper context with regards to what they should be doing, reason for doing it, and having the right goals for it. So that's why it's like, again, as we grow, which is like, I can't speak to every single person on the team every single day. I do my best, but you want them to have a framework where you don't have to be there every single day telling them, hey, this is why you should prioritize this over that, or that action over a different one.
Right.
And that was kind of like the deeper need behind it. It wasn't necessarily that it had created problems, but it was more that I wanted to free up more of my time and the team's time to not have to, have day-to-day input in order for the right things to be done, to be accomplished.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So basically, so that people can stay aligned, make some autonomous decisions that kind of are coherent with everybody else's, because you've done the pre-work to give them the framework to make those conversations within. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think the cool thing about that too is that it really does free up a lot. You mentioned, I'm reading between the lines a little bit. You mentioned something about having frequent discussions and taking the time. It's been my experience and observation too, is taking the time up front on a regular cadence to decide this is what we're going to do. As opposed to like regularly reprioritizing, like worst case, it's like moment to moment.
Yeah,
What is the most important thing for me to do right now? Man, that burns a lot of cycles, brain power
it
to
does.
constantly
Yeah,
reprioritize and like reevaluate. And you get stuck, and what you end up doing is checking email
yeah,
or whatever, right? Doing like something that
yes,
is going to be somewhat fruitful
yeah,
instead of the higher level strategic things. And so I think you're looking at a good place. It really will open up. It'll help people just slip right into the higher, the highest value work. Boom. Like you have an hour, boom, you can just do it, right? It's really tough to do that if you don't have some pre-work done. So anyway, I'm a
yeah.
believer, you can imagine. And then, okay, then the greatest salesman in the world. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
What's the takeaway from that one?
Uh, it might sound odd, but I would say it's fate.
Mm,
And you have to read the book to kind of understand that, but it kind of gives you a set of beliefs that you can kind of use in your day to day, sort of like reminders, or values, as a different way to put it, that you can leverage within your life as a CEO, as a salesperson, in order to reach your goals and be where you want to be.
what's an example?
An example is, you're a unique creature and you should be treating yourself like that. You should exaggerate the things that make you unique. You shouldn't try to fit in. Another one's love yourself. There's a few ones. Some of them are more challenging. This is the second time I'm reading it.
Mm,
Um, there's different things that stood out the first time that I was a bit less able to kind of take in, and I had more resistance on. And there's different ones that are standing out now, which is quite interesting. Like approach things with love, approach people with love,
mm,
because love is what's going to make people open up and be receptive to your message, whatever you're selling. Um,
right.
it has some nice messages. Yeah, but it's like faith, because it's probably one of the things that I had to instill in myself. It's like you're doing the best you can at every single moment. There's nothing else to be done.
Mm,
Anxiety or stress or any other kind of emotion doesn't really help.
mm,
You just have to let go and accept that something is going to come out. Hopefully the thing you want is going to come out. Maybe sometimes it doesn't, and we'll have to learn to be okay with that as well.
right.
And that's why, I'd say like faith is one of those elements there. And it kind of talks about it. It's like success hides behind the next bend in the road. You never know how close it lies until you turn the corner. So that's why, for example, you have to always keep taking another step and another step and another step, even if it doesn't feel like, you're making progress.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff in that. I think one of the things that I've observed in myself and others is this idea that sometimes you can create what you fear. So if you're like really, really worried that if you don't make
Yeah.
this sale, and if you don't, then it's going to be a big problem. You don't make the sale, if you go in that way, and so there's a way that you can create what you fear. I really
And
like.
there's a rational reason behind what you just said. It's like, it's not like you're creating because you fear it. It's you're creating it because, generally speaking, our brains are tuned to identify danger, but we're not in the jungle anymore. There's no lion chasing us. The worst thing that can happen is, I don't know what, become homeless, I guess, if you're in the US. If you're in Europe, you're probably a little better at all. I just had to make a joke about it. Yeah, so it's like there's no lion chasing us. We're not in a life or death situation anymore. It's like we're living in a society that has a protective net around us. We have food, we have shelter, we have light, we have healthcare, hopefully also. Um, but still, because we're 100,000-year-old species, we can't change our wiring overnight just because it's now a safer place or a safer world to be. So our prefrontal cortex is always tuned to identify danger. And when there's no danger, we learn to perceive danger in other things. Like, oh fuck, I'm not gonna make the sale and I'm gonna die. It's like, oh, we're gonna lose a client and it's gonna be the end of the world. Oh, this team member is gonna leave and the whole business is gonna go down. And it's not like we're making that we are making that fear come true, in the sense that our brain gets so tuned into that thought that it takes away our power to work in a different direction, our power to dream a different outcome and actively work towards that. And I think with that, you also have to have faith and acceptance. You have to have the faith that you'll make up a plan for whatever it is, no matter how tough things are, you'll make a plan. And then you have to have acceptance that, yeah, it might not work out, and we have to learn to be okay with it. Faith it's going to work out, but also acceptance of the outcome no matter what. Yeah. We can get really deep philosophically speaking. If you don't want to go that route, we can definitely talk about something lighter, but I don't mind.
No, I'm a sucker for philosophical conversations. That's for sure. I do want to ask you some questions about other things as well, but I think that those are, in some ways, these are the deeper and most impactful things, right? Like you could share your cold email secrets, and I'm sure that'd be super valuable. But if somebody, you know, basically is sabotaging their success, as we all do, regularly, if we're not careful, then of course it's not going to help them. So that faith aspect, I think, is and patience, right? Faith and patience, and kind of I think also this idea that, you know, I'm not the only one that struggles. This is part of the reason why I want to have people like you on the show, right? Is like, you know, because people get very isolated and feel like, you know, this is hard, and that means something's wrong. Something must be wrong. It shouldn't be this hard. You know, they have these expectations for themselves. This should be easy for me. This should be easier for me. I grew up, and you know, I thought this founder thing was gonna. Sure, other people struggle with it even, but you know, I thought I did good in school and whatever, and people told me I was a special snowflake, and I thought it was going to be different than this. So this is, you know, kind of the self-talk that can sabotage us as well.
Yeah. Also, the fact that there's no straightforward path. Like it really hit home at some point. I was kind of comparing, not comparing is not the right word, but looking at my path as a founder versus my cousin. She's same age as I am. She went into dentist school, then she did her master's, finished first and all that. She's now opening her practice as an orthodontist. She's amazing. But what hit me is like, I've also done my bachelor's in computer science, but that was like, you know, ages ago. And since then, there's no kind of accreditation. Like for my cousin, she's going to go through school, she's going to go through her master's, she's going to get a stamp that says you're good enough. And that's it.
Right.
For the rest of her life, yeah, maybe she's going to get 10% better, you know, year over year or decade after decade. But for the rest of her life, she can rest assured that she knows 90% of the things that are going to come her way. Some of it is going to be added because of time, and you can't really anticipate that. But if you're starting a business, where's the path? Where's the course? What certifies you to be good at running it, to be, you know, to have all the skills to know from recruitment all the way to accounting, to management, to the hard skills that your professor requires? It's like, where does it end? It doesn't. It only ends when we want it to kind of end, maybe temporarily. And that's the stage of the business that we stay at when we're like, okay, I don't want to grow anymore. And let's stop.
Or an exit, right? Is another kind of like.
Or an exit, sure. Yeah.
It is interesting, and I was talking to somebody else about this recently, about how even the exit, though, there's plenty of room for people to be like, maybe I was lucky, maybe it was the market, maybe I'm still not sure if I am a true founder or something, right? Or if I still don't feel like I have the stamp of approval, even after multiple exits. You know, these things are core to our faith, to our framework, the way we see the world. They're internal.
And that's why it's like, okay, you know, you'll become you might say to yourself, okay, I'll stay as an employee for another 5 years, learn how things are done. And then what? Like if you stay for 5 years, for 10 years, whatever, if you start a business, or there's never an end to it. At some point you just have to act and disregard all other thoughts and be like, okay, this is what it is. I like doing this. I get pleasure from it, not just from achieving the goal, but from the process itself. That's it. Whether I am a founder or I'm not, you know, let the postmortem, you know, worry about that. The guy running the eulogy.
Right. So tell me a little bit about how you ended up where you are. Like you said, you took computer science in school.
Hmm.
Then what happened?
Yeah. Before going to uni, there was a class in high school called um, Foundational Principles of Business something, business management. And it was the first time I came across business and marketing as like terms and kind of, the full embodiment of what it is, and Maslow's pyramid of needs and Ford's, production chain and all that. And something like really hit home with me, like out of nowhere. Like there was nothing in my background, in my family, in my environment that had ever prompted me that this might be something I'm interested in. And overnight, even though I was going for my computer science bachelor, I was like, fuck, this is a whole new world. It's like, suck me. And I didn't even realize it. Like I just started consuming content around startups, around business, around marketing. Um, I couldn't change the direction of my studies. So I did end up joining computer science as a bachelor's. And I didn't finish it. It took me 10 years because midway through, I found a marketing agency that I joined
Mm.
uh, alongside my studies. It helps that in Greek unis, there used to not be a limit in terms of how many years you can stay as a student. So it's like, okay, fuck it.
I see.
And I ended up getting even more absorbed by working at that agency. I ended up growing with the agency itself, joined as a junior guy. Back in the growth marketing days, it was one of the first growth marketing agencies in the world. I took over sales, account management, then becoming the head of growth, running the business, along with the CEO, recruiting. Like I took care of everything. Took over big projects, big responsibilities, landed the airport in Singapore as a client at 26 years of age or something like that. Some fun stuff, some wild and some fun stuff. And at some point I was like, okay, I'd like to do that by myself. I think I could maybe even do it better. Because I could see some of the issues that business had because of the CEO. And it kind of gradually happened. I started sales captain, but it didn't happen overnight. I ended up joining Outworld. So we hosted the largest marketing conference in the world. We would have 50,000 attendees during COVID. I ended up inviting some of the biggest names in marketing as speakers. I ended up interviewing them myself. I actually used Riverside for that. It worked out. One-on-one on Riverside works out.
Yeah.
So it was like Scott Galloway, Ariana Huffington, the CMO of Pepsi, the CMO of MasterCard in the US, like
Seth
CMOs of
Godin. Did you
Samsung,
say Seth
etc.
Godin?
Seth Godin, Rory Sutherland. Yeah. Damn. It's crazy because it all happened like in a year and a half. It happened like this. You would go into the cycle, two events a year, 100 speakers, 100 plus speakers per event. So the moment you're done with an event, you've already started recruitment for the next event.
Right.
And I was in charge of like all the content, all the different tracks, everything that went out. So I lost track at some point. Tom Bilio, I had an interview with Tom Bilio, damn.
Mhm.
And I reached out to all of these people via email.
Right.
So it was like, this works not just for generating business, but it also works to attract even high network, high, perception individuals. Damn, like that actually works. And it kind of pointed me even more towards the direction that Sales Captain was already taking. It was growing in the background. And at some point it had to become a full-time thing, and it did. And since then it exploded, since I joined the company full-time.
When was that?
2 years ago.
Okay. I'm going to go back. You said something interesting that I wanted to follow up on. Back in the growth marketing days.
Mhm.
So, what does that mean? Does that mean we're the growth? Is that a terminology change? We don't say growth marketing anymore, or is there something specific you have in mind that's no longer holds? Help us out, the non-marketers. Why are we not in the growth marketing days? What do you
Okay.
think now?
Have you heard that growth marketing, growth marketer being used as a term?
Yeah.
Like recently, I mean.
Oh, yeah, not as much. How come?
Mhm. Yeah. So growth marketing was, you have to keep in mind the state of the world that we were in. So I think it started around 2012, 2013, if I'm not mistaken. from software companies in Silicon Valley, in the San Francisco area, that wanted to grow really fast, that didn't have the budget to grow fast, and also were kind of digital companies. So I think before that, before growth marketing, we had marketing, like traditional marketing channels, and internet marketing, which was a bit scammy to a certain extent. It had more kind of scammy connotations. Growth marketing was the establishment of the actual experimentation principles of any quantifiable paradigm into marketing. So it was the first time that we had digital as a channel that allows us to scale, that allows us to run experiments, that the technology is good enough that we can iterate and track the results. And that also requires, and because of these things, digital for the first time became strategy. Before that, digital was just a channel. Hey, we're doing marketing, and marketing is the thing. And then you have traditional marketing, you have PR, you have advertising, and then maybe someone's doing digital. And by digital, we meant really specific things, like some ads.
Right.
But it was always part of a bigger umbrella. It was never its own thing. But because of the power of the internet, because of how many people joined the internet back in the day, because of the rise of the smartphone and a lot of technological developments that made accessing the internet and generally interacting with businesses online easier and more user-friendly, more and more people were doing business through the internet. So growth marketing kind of combined the understanding of marketing plus digital plus business. So it was kind of this concept that you need someone who's technical, someone who understands business, and someone who understands marketing and psychology. And that kind of group of people can leverage digital, not just as a channel, but as a strategy, an actual strategy for the business to grow. So the first kind of terms and the first use cases or case studies that have to do with growth marketing are around Airbnb, Dropbox, and companies like that use digital as the sole channel for the business's growth.
Right.
And that's what kind of that encompassed.
And
I think we're past.
Yeah, you kind of referenced this too, but I think like scrappiness is part of my connotation with growth marketing too, right? Like, it's not like buying Super Bowl ads. It's not that. It's right. That's part of the mix.
Yeah, it didn't have to be, but yes, it was part of it because you didn't have the budget. So, and part of it was also we don't know what's going to work, so we have to build the experiment. We have to assign different values using an experimentation framework like ICE. How certain are we that it's going to work? How big is the impact going to be? How easy is it to execute? And then prioritize activities. But and that's why I said it was the framework of how do we actually leverage marketing in a quantifiable way, less than here's a big idea. This is how to sell cigarettes to the masses. Let's create a messaging and go after it.
Yeah.
It had the element of experimentation.
Yeah, there's a book called Traction, and then like the Bullseye framework. Here's 20 things. Experiment with at least 3 every 3 months, and then
correct
like that. Is that kind of this is the these are early days this is a seminal work in the growth marketing.
Yes, indeed, it's one of the reads. Another one's Hacking Growth by Son Ellis, and then there was another one by Ryan Holiday, who back in the day was one of the first popular growth marketers. I don't remember the title, but he has a really interesting read on growth marketing. But those were like Hacking Growth, a red book, was one of the big ones.
What is it called again?
Hacking Growth.
Okay. Oh, Hacking Growth. Right. So now, but you say those, but like it's past tense. Like we don't do that anymore. But so say more about that.
I wouldn't say it's like you don't do that anymore. I would say growth became a term. So you now have a head of growth at a company, which typically has digital as one of the main items. But I think we're talking less about growth marketing and more about marketing, because marketing is now something that encompasses all channels. And in many businesses, it's software businesses, digital is like the main channel. So you no longer need to reference that specific set of like rules and frameworks because they have kind of been embedded in the broader picture of what marketing includes. That's why and it was also in the old days because there's these trends these macro trends, at least within the marketing space. I'd say in every sector, but within the marketing space, and growth marketing was a trend. Like there was a period of time that people would come to us simply because we identified as growth marketers.
Right. Yeah, interesting.
Same as
So
with
basically,
AI right now, for example.
growth marketing won, and so now it doesn't have to distinguish itself because it's kind of like the
Yeah.
way it's done.
Every sort of marketing now includes growth
Yeah,
within it.
yeah. Okay, well, that's a nice segue into some of the questions that I had. Here's one. You're a cold email guy. You wrote a book on it.
Mhm.
Most of the founders that I talk to who try cold email
Mhm.
fail.
Hmm.
Why is that?
I mean, assuming that their business model supports running cold email, right? Because if you try to run cold email to sell something that costs $10
Yeah,
a month, it's not going to work. You have to have a right deal size in a sales cycle that's not long enough and is not short enough so that it can work. Typically, that's like 10K to 50K deals,
yeah. But
annual
you'd say
deals.
usually it doesn't not work because they got lots of responses, but it didn't pay for itself. It didn't work because they didn't get lots of responses. Like they gave
Yeah.
up. What do you think? I mean, I know that there's 100 different answers to that, but is there, for some people who are listening who are like who've gone through this cycle? Yeah, I mean, I sent 1,000 emails and it put a
Mhm.
lot of time into it and it didn't feel like it bore any fruit. Um, what would be like the first, second, and third questions you would ask that might surface in your experience or likely to surface the key issues?
I wouldn't even be asking questions.
Oh no.
And not because I'm ignorant, but I have a much simpler kind of answer. There's three key components to outbound. It's targeting, who are you reaching out to, messaging, and the offer. What are you saying? And then deliverability, like using the right tools to make it work. For someone who has failed, and it doesn't have to do with the cost or the
Yeah.
economics of the channel, they usually haven't iterated enough. So it's typically one of those three elements that they, usually it's the offer because it's the less straightforward thing to nail. Um, and usually that's the typical pain point. Like the offer itself typically jeopardizes that. But you can tell, like, usually in those cases, if someone hasn't been able to nail cold email, it's because their offer is not optimized for cold audiences. And that has the consequence that it's not just outbound that doesn't work. It's also any sort of performance marketing. Paid ads
Right.
most likely wouldn't work either.
Right.
But I have a big asterisk there. Every single founder, with probably a few exceptions, has run cold email or LinkedIn outreach campaigns. They just don't call it that because who hasn't reached out to people to get, funding? Who hasn't reached out to people to get employees or get more team members? Who hasn't reached out to people that they followed up on from a conference? So I think intuitively, we've all been part of it. We've all run that. A parent wants to pick a school for their kids. What are they going to do? They're going to look at the map, make a list of the top, 5 or 10 schools, and then call them, and then go have appointments.
Mm.
So we've all the thing that really attracted me into outbound and cold email is like how close it is to the market and how bi-directional it is. That really gives you feedback fast.
Right.
Because if you think about paid ads, you run an ad, people don't resonate. What's going to happen? Nothing. You're not going to get clicks. You're not going to get sales. If you spam people, like if there's three elements, as I said, if you really pick the wrong audience and you pick people who are not interested or don't understand what you're saying, and that's worse, people are going to respond back at you and with really harsh feedback.
Yeah.
They're going to call you spammer. They're going to say, what the fuck are you doing? They're going to mark you as spam. You're going to really feel it. And that response from the market for me as a founder was really interesting because especially in the early days, it allows you to iterate on your messaging fast enough so that you can actually get to message market fit for outbound. And that's why, it was a channel that really won me. And also for someone who hasn't made it work, they probably didn't fine tune it enough. They probably didn't spend enough time to diagnose why is it not working. There's like 3 or 4 basic elements and then tweak them until it works. My first cold email campaign was an absolute failure. It was iteration that made it work.
Yeah, that resonates with me. The offer is often the issue. are there one or two common mistakes that you notice in terms of how people position their offer?
I would say it's not even mistakes. Anything that's commoditized, anything that people would consider that they have built into their business or into their systems and doesn't create FOMO is not going to get an answer. So if you're pitching marketing services, HR consulting, any type of consulting, especially, or anything that's like commoditized, CRM implementation, IT development or product development, it's not going to work. By default, it's not going to work. And it's not going to work for a really specific reason. It's not specific enough. Because if you think about an agency, they can work with 100 different types of companies, and they'll be implementing slightly different things for each and every one of those companies. And you can even use Sales Captain as an example. So the issue you have when you're running outbound is, unless you pick specific industries and you have really specific problems you've identified for every single industry that you want to target, and you also have specific solutions that you know are going to be impactful for those businesses, more often than not, the worst response you're going to get, and this is the worst response you can get with cold email, is either no response or we're already covered or this is not a priority.
Right.
So the worst thing that you can do with regards to your offer is two things. Not answer the questions, why me and why now? So anything that's innovative, anything that challenges the status quo, anything that gives people the feeling that you really understand their business and their business model. And it's usually super easy for that to not be a problem with SaaS businesses, because usually they have a specific USP. Like SaaS is literally the use of technology to solve a very specific problem. So many SaaS businesses don't have that issue. It's usually when we're talking about commoditized businesses, service businesses, consulting businesses, that becomes an issue, because it's hard for the end user to visualize the actual transformation that you're pitching.
So what you're saying, for example, I get a lot of emails from people offering me outsourced development. Believe it or not, people email me about that quite a bit, and it resonates with me when you say that's never going to work, because I never am tempted at all by these cold emails. And so what would be are you saying that there are some businesses that just aren't suitable for cold email, like, and this is one example? Or are you saying you would need to have, not say cold, outsourced development, but like, I see that you are running this stack, and often there's this problem, and we specialize in fixing it in this 10x way. Are you interested? Is it more the second?
Yes. And it's also giving them different ideas. Like, hey, I just worked with a business that's really similar to yours, or two businesses, big businesses, that also helps. Here's what we implemented for them, and give like a really specific solutions. Like, for example, we're working with an infrastructure as code business. I hope people understand what that means. It was a hard concept for me to get. Pretty much they do DevOps.
Yeah.
And the pitch was like, gain 10% of your time back, or have AI ready infrastructure. I was reading out the copy and I was like, what the fuck does that even mean? And I looked at the ICPs, for example, and we had, what was it? Power grid or power supply companies. And one really nice iteration of the message is like, companies X, Y, and Z, I think it was like BP and NG, or a similar name, have been able to model their network or model their substations through the use of like AI or something like that. And that allows them to run their networks faster. I was like, damn, like that's actually specific enough. Right. So we actually help them iterate. But the client or the company has to be open to doing that. That's the caveat. As an agency, that's the caveat. As a business, if you want to grow, you have to do it. If you don't want to grow, you don't have to do it.
And by do it, you mean like to niche down, or what? What's the resistance?
To be open to experiment with different offers, to be open to having this different kind of messaging, not necessarily expecting that the answer is going to be that the call to action is going to be, we want to book a call with you guys, because that's not how it works.
Hmm.
especially with consulting or commoditized services. So you have to be open to tweak your offer. You have to be open enough to niche down and present your business in those kind of not different ways, but like those more specific ways. And also be able to experiment with different calls to action. Like if people don't want to book a call with you and they might be like, yeah, we want to get the case study. We might want to get, the 2026 infrastructure implementation, I don't know, playbook, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And then have a follow-up that books the call. That they have to be open to that.
You must have clients that come who basically the answer to why now,
Mhm.
basically there's no reason why now specifically. Like you could do it any time. I just want you to do it now. Uh, what strategies do you use to help? Some offers would have a very natural why now, I think, but
Yeah.
some don't. And so how do you
Mhm.
manufacture a why now?
Yeah. You look at the industry and you look at what's going on. New regulations, lawsuits, what your competition is doing, triggers within the business itself or within the industry itself, upcoming opportunities. Yeah, it's not always easy and it's not always straightforward. Could be, and it really depends on the industry. Like if you're talking about anything security or IT, it's usually new technological developments. AI is a big, is a
Sure.
big right now. Um, Anything with AI within it, it's like really easy for us to get traction because it has an element of FOMO. It's like, why now? Because everyone's doing it. That's why
Right.
it's easy to pitch. But you have seasonality, which is also a really easy why now. There's a lot of like different reasons that you can make up to position that.
Mm-hmm. Time is flying. Lots of good information, and I just have a couple other questions, if it's okay. One is, I saw on your website that you have like these free subject line tester and analyzer, free buyer persona generator, free cold email generator, these sorts of things. And this is an idea. Actually, I think this is back to the traction book. I think this is one of the channels they talk about is engineering as marketing or something like that. Tools,
Mm,
free tools as your
yeah.
magnet. How is that working for you? And is it something that yeah, is it working well? Any recommendations or thoughts on that approach in general?
Generally, it works. It's not a single kind of shot because it requires for the person who's converting, it requires a nurturing sequence. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy now. So, but that goes back to the core kind of principle I have is that no single marketing channel, as an example, works in isolation. Like you do LinkedIn content, people engage with it. You have to have a framework and a mechanism for engaging with those people and maybe offering them a lead magnet, whether it's a PDF, a guide, a free audit, a free tool, whatever it is. People submit a form on your website and it is working well because it's based on an SEO framework that we've built. We're ranking quite nicely. So we create, we also get a lot of backlinks. Like engineering as marketing typically gets a lot of backlinks to it as well because it's something that's valuable enough for people to share. So we get people who engage, they submit the forms, and then the back end is that we have a marketing team that's actively creating content every single week to engage people, nurture people, connect with them through our LinkedIn profile so they can be seeing more content so
Mm.
that when they're ready, which might be 3 to 6 months later, they'll naturally book a call with us. So it works, but it doesn't work by itself.
Right, right. Yeah, I think this is one of the challenges that about doing these kinds of things in house is that there's just a lot of areas of expertise required to do all the things required. It's not
Yeah.
a one shot. It's not a silver bullet.
No. And that's why it's like you have to have with going back to growth marketing, there was a kind of principle of the T-shaped marketer, T in that kind of sense, meaning that you have to have broad knowledge across different areas, and then you specialize in like maybe one or two of them. Like running ads, for example, you have to have technical knowledge of the platform. You have to have conversion knowledge. How do we set up conversion events within the website or the app? And you have to have landing page CRO experience and expertise as well, because the landing page itself plays a really big role in the performance of the ads, in the conversion rate itself. So you think that running ads and being a paid ads expert means knowing Facebook in and out. It doesn't.
Mm.
You have to know the platform. You have to be good at creatives and creating messaging. It also requires engaging your users so you can have user-generated content to use, which is really effective in directing consumer sales. And you also have to be able to optimize the buyer's journey. Part of it also is optimizing the back end. So it's like someone made a sale. How do we increase the average order value? And how do we get repeat sales from the people who are already engaging through email marketing? So even if you're like a business owner running a direct-to-consumer business, it's like so many components for paid ads to work. Because you might say, I'll buy new users, I'll buy sales at a loss because I'm upselling them in the back end through my email marketing campaigns, which is free. So yeah, it's exciting. To me, it's exciting. So I guess, more than anything else, you just need to be working with people who are exciting about these things. There's never going to be a shortage of challenges as long as you have people who are eager to solve those challenges when they appear.
Yeah, it seems to me, Bill, that you kind of like this stuff. It seems
Kinda.
this is your area. Yeah. Bill, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. I appreciate you sharing. But we had some existential conversation, some
Yeah.
tactics conversation, some business philosophy conversation. So it's been a pleasure to connect. If you're listening and you're interested in cold email, get Bill's book, Cold Email Secrets. Check his website out, salescaptain.io. Thanks for coming on the show, Bill. It's been a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Founders, if you're struggling to manage goals and execution with your team, HabitStack can help with that. I'm Scott Ward. Thank you for joining me on the HabitStack podcast.